On the 5th of December, 1965, an American aircraft carrier was sailing through rough water near Japan. An A-4 Skyhawk sat on one of its deck elevators with a live nuclear bomb mounted beneath it. The ship turned. The deck tilted. The aircraft began rolling backward. Before anyone could stop it, the jet crossed the elevator and disappeared over the edge. Lieutenant Douglas Webster was still inside. So was a complete B-43 nuclear bomb. The aircraft hit the water, flipped upside down, and sank too quickly for Webster to escape. The ocean there is close to 16,000 feet deep. No realistic recovery was possible. For years, the official record placed the accident more than 500 miles from land. That was useful wording. It was also not true. In 1989, the real location became public. The carrier had been roughly 80 miles from a Japanese island. A live American nuclear weapon had been sitting nearby for 24 years, and Japan had not been told. The bomb is still down there. This is the clearest version of a missing nuclear weapon. Complete, operational, and never recovered. But most stories on the list are not that simple. The military calls accidents involving nuclear weapons broken arrows. At least 32 American broken arrow incidents were officially recorded between 1,950 and 1,980. None produced an accidental nuclear explosion. Several still left something behind. Sometimes that was a complete bomb. Sometimes it was only the nuclear material. Sometimes the fissile core had never been installed, making a nuclear blast impossible. In other cases, the location is known, but the weapon is under so much water or earth that knowing where it is does not help very much. So what exactly did America lose, and what is still out there? 7 years before the Ticonderoga accident, another American nuclear weapon disappeared much closer to home. On the 5th of February 1958, a B-47 bomber was conducting a training mission over Georgia when it collided with an F-86 fighter. The bomber was badly damaged. One engine was partly torn from its mounting, and the crew needed to land. There was one problem. A Mark 15 nuclear bomb was still aboard. The pilot was ordered to drop it before attempting the landing. He released the weapon over the shallow water near Tybee Island. There was no explosion. The bomber landed safely. Then the search began. Military teams dragged the water, scanned the seabed, and searched the surrounding marshes. After several weeks, they stopped. The bomb had disappeared into the mud. This sounds worse than it was, although that is not a particularly comforting sentence. The weapon did not contain its plutonium arming capsule, so it could not produce a nuclear explosion. It still contained conventional explosives and other materials that nobody wants slowly aging beside a coastline. Later surveys found nothing that conclusively identified it. The most likely explanation is simple. The bomb entered soft sediment, buried itself, and kept sinking. It may now be several feet beneath the seabed. In April 1958, the Air Force declared the weapon impossible to recover. Digging for it today could create more risk than leaving it alone. So somewhere near Tybee Island, a Cold War bomb is being protected by mud and a firm decision not to poke it. On the 10th of March 1956, another B-47 left Florida for Morocco. It carried 2 sealed nuclear capsules inside protective cases. These were not complete assembled bombs, but they were the components that made the mission nuclear. The flight required 2 aerial refuelings. The first was completed. During the approach to the second, over the Mediterranean, the bomber descended through cloud. It never appeared beneath it. There was no distress call, no confirmed explosion, no wreckage. The 3 crew members, the aircraft, and both nuclear capsules disappeared together. Search teams covered the expected route and checked possible crash sites on land. Nothing matched. There is no accepted point on a map, no known wreck, and no object waiting for a future recovery mission. The bomber could be underwater. It could have struck remote terrain. It could have broken apart somewhere that was searched badly or not searched at all. 70 years later, every explanation ends with the same problem. Nobody found it. Losing a bomb in a known patch of ocean is one thing. Losing the aircraft before satellite tracking existed is a more complete form of failure. The first officially recognized American broken arrow happened in 1950. A B-36 bomber was flying from Alaska to Texas on a simulated combat mission when ice formed on the aircraft, and several engines failed. The crew could not keep it in the air. Before abandoning the bomber, they released a Mark IV weapon over the Pacific coast of Canada. It contained uranium and a large conventional explosive charge, but no plutonium core. A nuclear blast was impossible. According to the crew, the conventional explosives detonated in the air. A bright flash appeared below them, and the remains of the weapon fell into the ocean. So, yes, the nuclear weapon exploded. No, not in the way that sentence normally means. The bomber continued inland and crashed in British Columbia. Years later, its wreckage was found on a mountainside. The remains of the bomb were not. This distinction matters. Some missing weapons were complete. Others were nuclear objects without the one component needed to become a nuclear explosion. Both belong in the official history. Only one version belongs in a disaster movie. The oceans did not get everything. On the 24th of January 1961, a B-52 broke apart over farmland near Goldsboro, North Carolina. It carried two powerful thermonuclear bombs. One weapon opened its parachute and descended almost gently into a tree. The other hit the ground at high speed and buried itself deep in a muddy field. The parachute weapon was recovered. Investigators discovered that several steps in its arming sequence had occurred while the aircraft was breaking apart. One remaining safety switch prevented the sequence from continuing. Exactly how close the bomb came to detonating is still debated. What is not debated is that it behaved far more like an armed weapon than anyone wanted above North Carolina. The second bomb broke apart on impact. Recovery teams dug roughly 50 feet into the ground and removed most of it. Then the hole filled with water, the walls began collapsing, and continuing became unsafe. One uranium-bearing section remained underground. This does not mean a complete hydrogen bomb is waiting beneath a farm. The buried section is only one component, separated from the rest of the destroyed weapon. But it contains enough material that the Air Force purchased a permanent easement over the area to prevent deep excavation. The land can still be farmed, people can pass over it. They simply cannot dig where the military would strongly prefer nobody to dig. Goldsboro is a different kind of missing. The government knows where the material is. It owns the right to keep it there. The recovery plan is now a legal document and several meters of soil. In May 1968, the nuclear-powered submarine Scorpion disappeared in the Atlantic with 99 people aboard. Months later, the wreck was located more than 10,000 feet below the surface, about 400 miles southwest of the Azores Islands. The submarine had broken apart on the seabed. It was also carrying two nuclear-tipped torpedoes. The Navy knows where the wreck is. It has surveyed the site and monitored the surrounding environment, but the torpedoes were never brought back. They remain with the submarine in deep water. This is where the word missing becomes almost philosophical. The wreck is not wandering around the Atlantic. Its position is known, but the weapons are unrecovered, inaccessible, and slowly aging in a place humans can reach only with specialized equipment. The crew was never recovered either. That makes Scorpion different from the other cases. This is not simply abandoned military hardware. It is a grave, and bringing the weapons back would mean disturbing everything around them. The ocean has therefore become the final storage site. Nobody designed it that way. The ocean simply kept what reached the bottom. There is no perfectly clean total. The stranger lesson is how ordinary the failures were. A ship turned. An aircraft entered cloud. Ice formed on a wing. A structural part failed. A crew needed to land. The machines carrying the most destructive objects ever built were still machines. They depended on cables, switches, weather, maintenance, and people having a normal day. Most days were normal. These were the other days.